He was born and raised in the town of Orangeville. His passion for the town shows in all that he does. Those who know him best describe him as a generous, quick-witted man that is full of life. Over the years, he has helped the town of Orangeville expand. He has put Orangeville on the map as a tourist destination. He is a charismatic leader. And his name is Drew Brown. He has served as the mayor of Orangeville for 2 3-year terms. As mayor, his work at the county level saw Orangeville finally get Dufferin 109 extended to form a new bypass. Within the town itself, he led the city through $15 million in infrastructure improvements. Join me, Diana Bumbaca, as I talk one-on-one with Drew Brown right after this break. Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Diana Bumbaca. Joining me today is His Worship Mayor Drew Brown. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me, and please call me Drew.
Okay, Drew, thank you. Drew, what was it like growing up in Orangeville?
Well, as I look back on it now, it was like something out of a storybook. We were small, much smaller community at that time, and if you lived in town, you knew just about everyone else who did as well. A story I often tell is that when people would come to town and they'd be looking for somebody, we would tell them not to ask us for an address. Tell us who it is you're looking for, because that's, as soon as you knew who they were looking for, you might not know all the streets in town, but you could tell someone how to get to where they were going. So we were a very close-knit community. That was in the days really before commuters, so everyone lived and worked in town, and I had almost an Andy of Mayberry type childhood, I guess more like Opie, which I look back at very fondly now.
In high school, you earned the nickname Wrench. How did you get that nickname?
Well, you've done your research, you're well researched. I grew very quickly and hit a height of 6'3" at a fairly early age, and my back muscles weren't particularly strong, and I used to hurt my back frequently, and my friends, I guess one time I said I wrenched my back, and I became Wrench.
What a great story. Do people still call you that today?
Well, 4 people.
Okay.
4 of my oldest and dearest friends.
And in high school, you also sat on your high school's student council.
That's right.
What was your first political experience like?
Well, you know, it was remarkably like what subsequent experiences were. We were a group of people, very different ideas sometimes about what should happen, but with the common goal of making things better in the school, certainly from the students' perspective. And we had to find a way to work together to do that. And I would say subsequently all of my experience in politics is that, on a different level, different issues, of course.
What was your position on the student council?
I was the vice president.
Okay. And how did you become interested in municipal politics?
Well, I grew up in town, as I've already noted, and had deep feelings for the town. And there came a time when I felt that the town was not being represented in a manner which I thought would bring honor to the citizens of the town. We had some staffing issues, and our relationships with the province in particular were not very good. And I decided that I wanted things to be better for my town, so I ran.
What was your campaign experience like?
Well, it's interesting. I find campaigning to be a very interesting situation from election to election. It's the very best opportunity you have to get out and talk to people. Mm-hmm. For some reason, people will be much more candid when they're speaking to you during an election campaign than they may be in Zayres or on Broadway between elections. So it's that first election, every election I've been involved in, it's a double-edged sword, really. It's great to get out and talk to people, but it's very, very tiring. You're always glad when the election campaign is over.
Now, in your 2 terms as mayor, what do you think has been your proudest achievement, because you have done so much for the town?
Well, I'm not sure that that's really well, I can tell you what I think. I don't know what other people think. One of the things that I am most proud of is the fact that I believe we have a much stronger sense of community. We have a much better relationship with our neighbors. One of the things that drove me to run for the mayor's position, because I had stepped off council, mm-hmm. and I came back to run for mayor, because again, relationships had gone very badly awry with our neighbors. And I don't think you accomplish anything by fighting. I believe very firmly that even if you don't particularly like somebody, you have to develop a good working relationship. So I'm very proud of the fact that we now have very good working relationships with all of our neighbors, with the provincial government, and I believe that more people today would tell you that they like Orangeville as their home, that they're proud of it as their home, and that's what gives me my deepest satisfaction.
Well, thank you. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about Median Man. Please stay with us. You're watching One on One. There's more to come with Mayor Drew Brown. Welcome back to One on One. Joining me today is Orangeville's Mayor, Drew Brown. Thank you again for joining me.
My pleasure.
Now, just before we went to break, I brought up Median Man. Mm-hmm. Who is Median Man, and what did he do?
Well, I'm Median Man. And Median Man made an appearance at the Greater Dufferin District Chamber of Commerce Awards night. And it was my way of acknowledging some of the controversy around the medians that we're building on Broadway in Orangeville, and to have a little fun. Some of the criticism has been quite intense, and I just thought I'd like to address the issue. It was there as mayor emceeing the event. It's there. That issue is with me everywhere I go. So it just made sense to address it, and I chose to do it in a rather light-hearted way with a big M on my chest.
Now, why do you think the medians on Broadway have been so controversial?
Well, a couple of reasons, really. One is that it's a major change. That thoroughfare, aside from being rebuilt, has not changed much in over 100 years. So people have an idea of what Broadway is, and some of them that it's not only what it is, it's what it should be. Mm-hmm. But with the opening of the bypass, we saw the opportunity to make some changes and to help build Orangeville's reputation as a destination. I see absolutely no reason why, when people speak of Niagara-on-the-Lake, Stratford, Elora, that Orangeville shouldn't either be the next town that they mention, or that it shouldn't have been the first. And in order to do that, you have to differentiate yourself from other communities. We have much to be proud of. We have beautiful architecture. Over the years, the Town Council has done some wonderful things like the Facade Improvement Program, working with business owners to restore or enhance their storefronts. But we needed something that would give us that edge over every other similar-sized town in southern Ontario. And I think this is going to do it.
What else can Orangeville do to differentiate itself from other towns?
Well, we are doing some other things like the tree carvings. We have Bob now, banners on Broadway, the banners that line our street, rather than buying mass-produced banners like so many other towns do. We've gone out to our artistic community and asked them to create original works of art, which we now hang on Broadway, and the response has been terrific. So we have things like that. We do support the arts through Theatre Orangeville, which has had the spin-off effect of creating a terrific, an absolutely astounding selection of restaurants. So I see Orangeville becoming a destination because we're embracing our past with historical murals. We're enhancing our downtown. So we're embracing our past, and we're really creating a dynamic future for the town.
What contribution do you think Humber College will make to Orangeville?
I think in the fullness of time that bringing Humber to Orangeville will be seen as the best thing that the last term of council has done. I think it will transform the town. Won't be overnight, but in the fullness of time, when the campus is established here, they're committed to having 2,000 plus students attending. There's bound to be a spin-off in terms of economic development. There will be companies locate here in order to be close to the college. We'll have all the students coming to town. I think it will enhance our communities in ways that we can't even yet identify. But a few years from now, it's going to be deemed a masterstroke and probably the best economic development investment the town has ever made.
Okay, we're going to go to another break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about your political career. Please stay with us. There's more to come on One-on-One with Mayor Drew Brown. Welcome back to One-on-One. Joining me today is Mayor Drew Brown. Now, Drew, I understand that you are not considering running for a third term as mayor. What made you decide that 2 3-year terms was enough?
Well, although there are lots of reasons I would like to be mayor for one more term, I think one of the qualities that we need to cultivate perhaps more often in political leaders is to know when to go. I've been mayor for 6 years. I've had certain areas that I have wanted to concentrate on: infrastructure renewal, support for arts and culture, that sort of thing. But another person will bring other priorities. And I think to be a well-rounded community, you need a change in leadership from time to time. And frankly, I'm at a stage in my life where it's time for me to look to new options, to decide what I will do for the balance of my work life, I suppose. I love being mayor. The opportunity to work with people, to get things done is very appealing. However, I think it is just time for it's good for the town and it's good for me to leave after 2 terms.
Do you think you'll ever come back to municipal politics?
Well, they say never, but frankly, I can't see it happening.
Would you ever consider running for a higher level of government?
Perhaps, yes. And I don't mean to be coy. I am certainly considering options in that regard.
What advice would you offer the next mayor of Orangeville?
Well, I wear a ring that says, to thine own self be true. And I would give that as a piece of advice. You have to do what you think is right, and If it's met by praise, don't let that go to your head, and don't take it too personally. And the same with criticism. And of course, it's criticism that really makes you look at your ring that says, be true. I think you have to have the strength of your convictions. So whatever direction the new mayor and council take the town, I think it's important that they have a plan and they stick to it.
How do you feel about the fact that the upcoming November election will be the last until 2010, making council's term now 4 years?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, I think it stinks. 4 years is too long. Particularly, my deepest fear is that there are people out there who might consider running for council. They're not quite sure. They live a busy lifestyle. How am I going to work this into my life? And then we say, and oh, by the way, it's for 4 years. Well, when it was 3 years, you know, that's a pretty significant commitment. But once you get up to 4 years, it's like we've crossed a psychological barrier. So my real concern is that it will keep more good people out of local politics, and we need all the good people we can get.
I understand you have an interest in history, especially the history of Orangeville. Can you tell me a little bit about Orange Lawrence, the founder?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, Mr. Lawrence was a Connecticut Yankee who moved up into Orangeville, and he was I think if you were going to try and capture his essence in a few words, it would be that he was a visionary, he was a builder, and he was a leader. And while he was certainly not the first person to settle in the Orangeville area, and there are many other names that we could mention who played very prominent roles in the history of the town, I think he brought a vitality and a drive that made the town, how shall I say, well, it wasn't even a village at that point, made the settlement more energetic, brought people together, developed commerce, and here we are all these years later.
Well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you about who you think some of the local heroes are and a little bit about the importance of celebrating local history. Please stay with us. There's more to come with Mayor Drew Brown. Welcome back to One-on-One. Joining me is Mayor Drew Brown. Now, just before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about history. Why do you think it's important to celebrate local heroes and local history?
Well, I think it gives you a sense of place, a sense of being. You don't have to be from a municipality to benefit from knowing the history of that town. It goes back to community building that we were talking about earlier. I don't think the size of a town makes any difference at all. What makes a difference is whether there's a sense of community. That's what makes it feel like home to you. And if you know how a town came to be, and some of the people who helped build it and make it a better place, then I think that has to be reflected in your thinking about the town and the area, in our case, because we owe much to people who lived around the town. And I think it just helps you build that sense of community. And also it may inspire some other people to do some things to help make the town better yet.
Who would you consider a local hero to be?
Well, you know, this is a short program. Too short for me to get into all of them. We've had many through history. Dr. Campbell, Judge Robb. Dr. Campbell was a gold medal lacrosse player in the Olympics. Judge Robb wrote when Ontario came out of Prohibition, he wrote the new liquor laws and served as a provincial court judge for many years. We have people today like, well, if I name one name, I'll get in trouble. But we have heroes today. We have people in the community today who are contributing just as much as these other people did. So we're very, very fortunate. And again, we still rely on people from around Orangeville. I can't just talk about the town because we really work well as a region. So my heroes are not just from Orangeville, they're from the area.
What is your favorite part about the town? What is it that intrigues you about your town?
Well, you know, I think if, like it is for so many people, it's Broadway. I love Broadway. It's, when I think of Orangeville, I think of Broadway and the people on it. Broadway's a street with no one on it, is just another street. But I still see Broadway as the place where we get together as a community and as a region, because I know I'm sounding very regional all of a sudden, but the truth is that Orangeville is the urban center for the region, and people come actually from right around us and from great distances to shop and enjoy the amenities of the town, and that's what I like about Orangeville.
Now, I've had the opportunity to visit you at your office, and I've noticed your admiration for Orangeville collectibles. What are some of your favorites, and how did you come to get some of these?
Well, my favorite pieces revolve around Orangeville's centennial in 1863. Pardon me, 1963. I was 6 years old in 1963, and I remember those celebrations. They're among the most vivid of my memories and some of my most cherished memories. So we had the odd piece that my parents got, I guess, during that year. But I've since registered with eBay, and I'm alerted every time something with Orangeville on it comes up for sale. And I've managed to get plates and mugs and wooden nickels and buttons and all sorts of things. It's all just very dear to me because I remember it so well.
Growing up, or even today, who are some of your mentors or inspirations for your career?
In terms of my political career, well, I would have to say that Vic Large, a former mayor, councillor, Reeve, deputy Reeve. Vic held just about every position there was on council. When I was first elected to council, he took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. We didn't always agree on things, but actually that's one of the things that Vic showed me, is that it's possible to disagree on an issue, but when the vote's taken, that's done, and then you come back together and you work for the betterment of the community. So he has played a major role. And then there have been many others, some of whom might be surprised to hear their names mentioned, like Dr. David Scott, a true gentleman who has served his community for many years and has shown over many years that it is possible to be a gentleman. You don't need to be confrontational to get things done. People like Bob Burnside, Doc Gillies, have shared their wisdom with me, and I treasure the mentoring that they have given me.
Well, Mayor Drew Brown, I wanted to say thank you very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to be able to sit down and speak with you. I know you have a very busy schedule.
Well, thank you for having me.
That wraps up another episode of One on One. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you next time.